Why people are mad at Adobe. Hi, before we continue our learning journey, we have to talk about why a lot of people, myself included, are mad at Adobe. In short, they changed a lot of things in Photoshop and this has caused a wave of confusion and frustration. It's not all bad, but let's take them one at a time. Please be aware that in the next few minutes we'll talk about things that haven't been covered in this course so far, but it's important you understand the source of any strange behaviour. Starting with CC 2019, Adobe changed the way we retrace our steps. Say I do a number of tasks. I'll create a rectangle, I'll change its colour and I'll move it to another position. Then I'll create a new layer. Finally, I'll use the brush tool on it. All these actions can be seen in the history panel, but that's not important. Here's the change. Hit Ctrl-Z and you undo. Use the same hotkey and you'll go back yet again. Basically, each tap undoes one step. As you can see, I'm retracing my actions with each step. If you're a totally new user, this may seem fine, but for countless years, Photoshop had a different behaviour. Let's switch to Photoshop CC 2017 so I can demonstrate. Please be aware you can't launch two instances of the program even though they're different versions. OK, here's how this goes, but keep in mind this applies to all previous Photoshop versions, even CS6. I'll do all sorts of actions and I'll keep my history panel active. OK, here we are. If I use Ctrl-Z, I'll undo, but if I hit it again, I'll redo. So the change in behaviour is significant. This meant that Ctrl-Z was useful for two things: go back once or toggle between two states. For example, if you have a button and you're not sure if it should be blue or red, you could use Ctrl-Z to go back and forth. As you can see, I'm quickly toggling between these two states. Finally, if you wanted to undo several times, you had to use Alt-Ctrl-Z. It's been this way for over 10 years, but Adobe changed its mind. For totally new users, this is great, but for experienced people, this needs some getting used to. In conclusion, starting with CC 2019, you can use Ctrl-Z to undo as many times as you want. As far as I'm concerned, this change is okay. The next one, though, makes me constantly hesitate. The alignment tools are now placed in a different order. In this print screen, at the top you have the current new alignment tools. But for countless years, this is what the panel looked like. Align top edges was the first one. I've been intensively using this feature of the Move tool since Photoshop CS4, so from 2008. As you can imagine, the new order of these tools is confusing. I'm now updating all my courses so they can accurately reflect the new layout. For you, this means you should never think of these tools like the second one or the fifth one. Pay attention to their names and icons. This is an infuriating change, even more so since Adobe XD, their latest and greatest program, does not use this new layout. This is why people are angry. Some of these edits don't make sense. At least make them consistent across all your programs. Moving on, the next change is huge. Here we have different layer types. We'll resize them one at a time. Again, this is going to be discussed later, but here's the change. For the text tool, when you hit Ctrl-T and you grab any handle, you no longer need to hold Shift to maintain its aspect ratio. Put another way, the text doesn't get distorted no matter what. The next layer type, same story. You can't squish it or play with its look. OK, that seems logical. But for this final item, guess what? You can resize it however you want. The problem is the following. If you do want to constrain its aspect ratio, you have to hold Shift. Now Photoshop is displaying the same behaviour as the two previous cases. But as you can imagine, this is confusing as hell. For some layer types, Shift is needed, while on others you don't have to press it. Moving back to the first example, if you mistakenly hold Shift, you're now distorting the layer. In short, Adobe is forcing us to remember two different behaviours for the same hotkey. Furthermore, you have to learn all the layer types in Photoshop and know how they're going to behave. For example, this looks like a rectangle, so a shape layer. Theoretically, I should be able to resize it freely. I'll go to this top middle handle and drag it down so I can shrink it. But look what happens, the layer resizes from all parts. That's because this is actually a raster layer that looks like a shape layer. The answer is you have to hold Shift. Now I can shrink it. Without a doubt, this is going to cause problems. If you're a beginner, your head may be spinning at this point. Hell, I constantly make this mistake myself as a long-time Photoshop user and certified expert, mind you. The best advice I can give you is this: you have to be patient. If something doesn't work as expected, please ask for help. Hover over the video and look for the Q&A button. There you can post your questions. Another thing Adobe has changed is the behavior of the Type tool. Starting with CC 2019, when you click, you're going to get a few Latin words, popularly called lorem ipsum or dummy text. This applies if you click and drag, though in this case you'll get even more text. Why Adobe decided to implement this change beats me. It makes no sense whatsoever. But no, that's now the standard. And if you press Escape, you won't get rid of it. Actually, you'll exit editing mode and you're going to be left with that text layer. That means you have to hit the Delete key each time you make this mistake. Frustrating, I know. Finally, if you ever accidentally click this home icon from the top left side of the screen, don't panic. It appears your work has disappeared. The solution is simple. Just click on the Photoshop icon or this arrow. In the end, these edits have made 10 years of tutorials obsolete. Everything that's on YouTube, Lynda, or any premium learning platform is no longer current. So again, for you as a person who wants to learn Photoshop, there's only one thing that matters. Be patient and ask questions. If you see any weird behavior on your end or things that don't match with what you see in my recording, send me a message and I'll help. On my end, I'll do my best to update all the lectures. Plus, I've attached a guide to certain lessons so you can review certain steps. For example, what just happened with the Shift key. Overall, this is why a lot of people are mad. Adobe threw people's work down the drain for no apparent reason. These edits aren't upgrades, nor things that radically improve our lives as designers. They're quirks that someone dreamt up, and the effect is profoundly negative. Stick with me and I'll teach you Photoshop no matter what Adobe throws at us. Thank you for your patience. Let's move on.